Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again. In today's episode of Do You Remember, we are checking out Rumble Racing on the PlayStation 2. So let's get right into it. Rumble Racing is a hidden gem classic. Whenever I bring this game up, nobody seems to know what this game is, which is just a huge shame because this game is incredibly underrated. It's probably one of EA Games' best racing games they've ever made, in my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to arcade racers, the first games that ever come to my mind is Burnout 3 and Flatout 2. Those are the two most played racing games of my generation growing up, and I still love them to this day. I might even have videos on those in the future, but for now, we're going to take a look at my third favorite arcade racing game, which is Rumble Racing. This is actually a sequel to NASCAR Rumble on the PlayStation 1 system, and I believe this only came out on the PlayStation 2. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment sections below. But this game was really just ahead of its time, in my opinion. I believe this did release before Burnout 3, or at least Burnout 2 possibly as well. And it just was one of those off-the-wall shoot games where people looked at it and they just were like, this is too cartoony, and they probably thought it came with the NASCAR license that the original NASCAR Rumble came with. But this basically is the exact same game as NASCAR Rumble on the PlayStation 1, just with a brand new engine, a grander scope with more levels and more cars to choose from, and of course, removing that NASCAR license, so you don't have to worry about driving random NASCAR vehicles. So as you can see from the gameplay here, the main gist of the gameplay is essentially it's a arcade racer like Mario Kart. Although it's not carts that you're driving, it's regular vehicles, but they do feel a lot like carts, like in Mario Kart or even Crash Team Racing, if you've ever played those games, because they feel very light, almost weightless in a way. You can't destroy them, they take no damage, but the coolest thing about Rumble Racing is the stunt system. So when you're going off jumps, you can hold the R2 button and you can rotate your car in all different types of ways, and if you land a perfect stunt, you get boost. And essentially, if you don't have boost, you don't win races. The AI in this game is very relentless. They're pretty tough, and even coming back to it today, I was very surprised at how difficult this game is. Out of the 6 or 7 races that I recorded for this video, I only won one of those races. Now, granted, I was playing on the hardest difficulty and in the elite circuit, because there's 3 different circuits in the game. You have the rookie, the pro circuit, and the elite circuit. And of course, I prefer the elite because the cars look the coolest and they also feel the fastest. And speaking of feeling fast, this game has a great sense of speed. Now, the levels are relatively pretty linear. There is some shortcuts here and there to find in every single level, which is pretty cool. So the more you play it, the better you're going to get, and the more you're going to learn those shortcuts and be able to beat your times faster and faster. But I will say, with that downside, I still can get past that because of just how frantic and fun the gameplay is, and that's definitely what makes this game shine. And coming back to the Mario Kart aesthetic, not only does the game feel like a complete arcade racer, but you also have power-ups just like in Mario Kart. So I already talked about the turbo that you can pick up or get from doing certain tricks while in the air, but there is actually 11 other pickups you can get throughout the level, ranging from a bad gas tank, where if you throw it on an opponent, it actually makes them very slow and they don't have any turbo anymore. Super traction, which makes your tires expand, basically putting them on fire, and you can have really the best traction or best handling in the game for a brief moment of time. Oil slick, pretty self-explanatory. Throw some oil on the cars in front of you and they go spiraling off the road. Big hit, which is basically a giant shield that forms in the front of your vehicle, whereas if you run into or touch other vehicles, they will be sent flying out of your way. Shockwave, just like it sounds, a giant shockwave bursts out of every side of your vehicle, throwing anybody out of the way. A bomb, which you just send flying at somebody. If it's within vicinity of the explosion, they will be sent off the road. A freeze, which doesn't necessarily freeze them in place. They'll keep driving, but they won't be able to turn very well. So more than likely they'll run into a wall or be sent off a cliff, which is really funny to see. Landslide, which is a ton of rocks, so you just throw at the enemy, and if you do get a direct hit, they'll go flying. Otherwise, if you don't hit anybody, you can leave them behind your car, and if somebody runs into them, they'll lose a ton of speed. You also have an invincibility shield you can get, and the Joker, which is a question mark, which is if you click on it, it will give you a random power-up, or it could possibly give you the gas can, which basically makes all of your turbo disappear, and your car slows down for a brief moment of time, which obviously is a huge hindrance. And the biggest, baddest power-up you can get, which only shows up if you're pretty much in last place, is the Tornado. Now this one still blows my mind to this day. It looks amazing and it's super devastating. So it literally is a tornado that comes out of the sky, it races down the path in front of you and throws anybody out of your way, essentially bringing you all the way up to first place, and I absolutely love it. All the cars have their own feeling and weight to them, which gives a little bit more versatility on who you want to choose to play as. My only gripe is I wish there was a little bit of customization with the vehicles, like maybe changing the color scheme or maybe different types of parts you can put on them, like different spoilers and body kits. But every car has their own personality and there's really no way to change them, so it really comes down to what you feel like playing as. The big muscle cars have a little bit better power, but they're less good at handling, whereas the smaller, more sporty type vehicles have way better handling, pretty good speed, but their acceleration might not be that great. And it's kind of vice versa. You have to really pick and choose who you want to play as. But again, you can't customize the vehicles, so if you're looking more at aesthetics versus actual functionality, you might have some frustration on which cars you want to play as. But speaking of the different vehicles, there is a ton to unlock in this game. Like, not only are there just regular vehicles you can unlock throughout the game, just playing it throughout the tournaments and winning different cups, because you don't unlock the Pro and the Elite series right off the bat. You start out with all the Rookie series, and you have to play through those championships in order to unlock the Pro and Elite series. So not only that, but there's also a ton of secret vehicles you can unlock, from like a motorhome to a random junker car, all the way up to a literal jet, which, yes, it is as insane as it sounds. You're literally driving a jet in a street race, which is pretty hilarious to see, but it's also really cool. And all these secret vehicles can actually be picked up by destroying literal Easter eggs found on many of the tracks within the game, and they're in pretty good hiding spots, I must admit. For me to go through and find all these Easter eggs as a kid, I remember it took me countless hours to go through and find them all myself. And this was before the days of the internet where you could go through and just look up a guide on how to do it. So yeah, it's kind of fun just to kind of go snooping around each level, trying to find each little Easter egg to find and unlock different types of vehicles. The soundtrack is also pretty decent. It's all original tracks, so nothing copyrighted here, which is nice to see, but it does get kind of monotonous after a little while. And of course, I have to bring up I'm going to call him like the DJ. It's pretty much the same guy from Burnout 3 that got really annoying for a lot of people and you couldn't turn him off. And sadly, you can't really turn him off here, but you can turn his volume pretty much to mute, so you don't have to listen to him if you really don't want to. But I have to be honest, even though he is kind of annoying with the same quips over and over again, there's just that certain level of charm about him that I really just can't drive myself to fully mute him. There is some funny lines that he will say from time to time that really just is like, wow, that is early 2000s cheese, and I kind of love it.
Houston, we are a go. You're running wide open. Now what is this, a Sunday drive with Grandma? You're messier than a mud hen in heat. Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of funny that they had this announcer, and I will say there is some really cool, like, weird sound effects they implemented as well. So for instance, if you're driving through like a tunnel, or if you're driving over a waterfall, the announcer's voice will actually change depending on the environment around you. So if you're in a tunnel, his voice will sound very echoey. And if you're going over like a waterfall, you'll actually hear him get louder as if he's yelling out into the heavens, trying to make himself be heard over the roaring sound of the waterfall. So it's just kind of cool, little tiny minute details like that that really stand out, that again, make me not really want to go through the hassle of muting him, just so I don't have to deal with his never-ending quips over and over and over. And the last little section I'll talk about is the levels themselves. I know I already kind of ratted on them a little bit by saying they're kind of linear and there's not a whole lot to each level, and I will stand by that. Even though I think that graphically this game still holds up today, it definitely shows its age in the level environments. Just the textures look very bland. There's not a whole lot to look at. It's really just the gameplay that will keep you entertained and keep your eyes glued to the screen, because the levels themselves aren't too good to look at. And not that they all are the exact same or anything, like some of them take place in a canyon in the desert, some of them take place up in the mountains, some take place in like a heavily forest area or outside at a night cityscape. There's a ton of different locations, which I really have to applaud them for, but the actual feeling of the tracks themselves, I feel like could have been more grand or more wide. They feel a little bit too linear for my liking. In terms of how much they're really emphasizing the stunts in this game, like going off big jumps and getting a lot of air, And granted, there is a lot of sections where you can do that on each level, but I just feel like they could have done more with the level design with this whole trick system. So all in all, I really love Rumble Racing. Even coming back to this game, I still had a blast playing it just for these recordings. And I ended up recording over an hour of footage, which I really did not expect to do, because usually I only have to record like 20 to 30 minutes of footage and I'm good to go. But I just was having a really good time coming back to this. So I highly recommend you guys giving this game a try if you haven't played it before. You can probably find it pretty cheap online for a used disc, maybe through eBay, or if you want to go down the emulation route, which is the way I'm playing it here. It's a great experience for a first-time player, and it's a lot of fun if you're really willing to turn off your brain for a little bit and just have some arcade racing action. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Do You Remember? Make sure to leave a like, share your support. As always, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out, everyone. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. Before we head out, I want to give a huge special thank you to our channel members. These are amazing people who are wanting to support the channel and the content here. And if you want to do the same, you can click the little join button underneath every single new upload. And in becoming a channel member not only supports me and the channel, but also gives you a ton of perks in doing so, including early access to new content and being a part of exclusive polls and information that other people would not be able to access. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you again so much for the love and support, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out.